Hello folks, and welcome to the channel, or welcome back. And you might remember in the previous video that we picked up these old cabinets or these old metal lockers, and in this video I'm going to prepare at least one of them. I already started on this one and I've been removing all the paint. There are different ways of removing paint from an old locker. This locker was painted green, as you can see, and it isn't all that hard to get it off. Of course, if you have like 5-6 coats on it, it might be a little bit more hard, but you can do it with chemical products. But you can also sandblast it, you can sand it, but the end result will be a little bit different. In my specific case, I've been using the sandblaster to blast it off, and you get this kind of gray, dull gray surface, and that's what I like, with a lot of shades in it. And I'm going to continue doing the second part, and I'll show you how we do this, but for that you need a blaster, and I'm using a very fine grit for that. And once that's done, I'm going to take it inside, and then we're going to paint this with a matte metal varnish. And the inside will be painted actually black. So I think it's going to be quite all right at the end, but we'll see. So let us continue blasting. And the media that I'm using to blast the paint off this metal locker is what we call garnet. And garnet is a very fine grit. It's garnet 360, and hopefully I still have a bit in the bag so I can show it to you. You see how dusty that is. So it's a very, very fine grit, and it works perfectly. It makes the surface very smooth. If you use a more thicker or more abrasive grit, you're probably going to damage it a bit more. You can also use glass beads or something else, and the end result on the surface of the metal will be quite different. So let's start. It has taken me 2 hours to blast the complete cabinet, and now it's ready to be taken inside. I already took all the dust off. Now once we have it inside, we're going to degrease it, and we're going to make it ready for its first varnish coat, which is going to be a matte varnish. And I think all by all, it turned out to be quite nice. You actually can see the different shades of gray still, so I don't know what that is on the metal, but it's a discoloration of the metal, but that makes it look quite pretty. I think it makes it look used, and that's the kind of style I wanted to have. And there's a little copper tag on the top of it, and it says that's coming from Brussels. I really like these kind of very simple locks. the cabinet into the spray booth, and now we're going to paint it. Now to paint it, I'm going to use a matte varnish, and for that it will be an acryl varnish. So that's going to be for the outside. Now you can use a brush for that or a paint gun. I'm going to use a paint gun or a Rainier gun because I have that available to me. And for the rest, we're going to paint the inside black, and also the top will be black and the back side. And if I open it up, you will see that the inside is still green or greenish. But I did actually blast it on the inside, so I quickly ran over it, and the loose parts are blowing off, as you can see. So now I can paint that. So it's kind of like being sanded, but not completely removing the paint. So let me get the paint ready. And before I start painting, actually, I have to degrease the surfaces. That's something you always have to do before you start painting. Degrease. And of course, as the last minute, we're gonna blow off all the remaining dust because we still have a lot of dust on it. Now to degrease the surface, I'm going to use something which is called acetone, and this is a very good product to do that. Don't buy these expensive degreasers that you can buy. This is very cheap stuff, and this is the stuff that ladies use to remove the nail polish on their nails. And you know, it's easy to use, and you can get it in bulk. So let me start with that, and then we start painting. There we go. And we're going to wipe it completely clean. And you see what comes out of it, right? There's still a whole bunch of dirt on it. It's going to be a little bit noisy with the fan on. To put the varnish on the bare metal, I will open up the doors first, and I first will spray around these edges here because these parts are remaining bare metal. The green stuff is going to be painted black. To apply the varnish to the bare metal, I'm going to leave the doors open first, and I'm going to do the edges first of all, because these bare metal parts will remain bare metal covered with actually varnish. The green stuff, that's going to be painted with matte black. So let me get my paint ready. I decided to start painting the inside of the cabinets with black paint. And here is that black paint. As you can see, it's pitch black. And it's extra dull, or matte as we call it. So I'm going to apply it with a brush and some rollers. And the reason for that is I like to see the strokes on the inside. I'm not going to tape anything. I'm just going to paint like this. And even if I hit the edges a bit, it doesn't really matter. If I do, I'm going to sand it down with some sanding paper because I want to give it this used look. You actually see the lines, you know, when I rub into the paint, and that's what I wanted to get. So if you allow me, I'm going to paint the complete cabinet, and then I'll come back to you when I'm done, when we're going to put up the varnish. So I'm done with painting the cabinets at the inside, and as you can see, it is really black inside and matte. It's still drying a little bit, but I think this is quite all right, and this is exactly what I wanted to have. As you might have noticed, I didn't mask off the sides here, and that's because I was using a roller. So if you use a roller to roll along the edge, then in this kind of a corner, you don't really need a masking tape on the edges. If you're a bit careful, it's going to work out just fine. So now I can actually paint the outside. So I'm going to prepare my paint now, or my varnish, and then we'll go and paint it or spray it. And even the back side is painted black because that's the side that fits towards the wall, so nobody will see that. But still, it's worthwhile to paint it, and as you can see, this is now smoothly black. It's still not dry here, you can see the wet spot. And before I start painting, I'm going to dust off the cabinet one more time. All right. So I'm going to prepare the varnish, and I heated it up a bit inside the house because it's pretty cold here in the barn, although the paint booth is quite warm, around 30 degrees centigrade. You don't need to use a very special paint gun for that. Any ordinary paint gun will do. This is not a high-end paint gun, and it just works fine. Just make sure that the nozzle is wide enough. The pressure I'm going to apply is about 1.5 bar or about 20-28 psi. You can see this is pretty thick stuff, so the nozzle on your paint gun has to be thick enough to be able to spray this kind of stuff. So I'm going to give it a try. It may be a little bit too thick. Nevertheless, let's try it. I can always add some dilution to it if necessary. Now, if I do this kind of paint work, I always use a filter, no matter what, because I don't want to have any clogs or pieces in my nozzle then, and the paint starts to sputter. Not a good thing to have. Let me put this aside. I'm going to let it zip through, and it will take a while because it's thick, very thick stuff, so we'll see. I mean, really slowly. See how it drips, but at least it will be filtered. There's different filters you can get. This is a 125 micrometer filter. They come in different sizes. The grit is different. See, there's a blue one, but I also have other ones that are a little bit thinner or thicker. The red one is 190 micrometers, depending on what paint you're going to use. Especially if you're going to use metallic paint, you want to make sure that the zift is having the proper size, so it will let the little particles through. I'm going to give it a try with what I have right now. I'm not sure, it's fairly thick, but let's try it out and see what it gives us, and if we have to dilute it a bit, then we will. But I don't want to dilute it too much. So as I stated, so it is a bit on the thick side, so I'm going to dilute it with about 10% maximum and no more than that. And that should be about it. Now you can't dilute more than that because it's water-based, this varnish. It's acrylic varnish, water-based. And if you're using water-based varnish on metal, you got to be very careful. It should dry very quickly because otherwise you may get oxidation. And this is something you really don't want to get. That's why I'm having in the spray booth infrared or far-end infrared panels. So pay attention to that. If you paint any metal part which is bare metal and you're going to paint it with water-based or water-diluted paint, like most modern paints today, then you may have a bit of an issue. So, alright, that should be good. So let's give it a try. So the panels are quite warm, and the first thing I'm going to do now is spray actually the edges here, and then I close the doors and then spray all the complete front panel in one go. So let me start with that, and then we'll see how it goes. I've given it 2 coats of varnish, and it's now drying up pretty quickly. There's still some wet spots on it, And I think this has worked out to be quite all right. It's still a little bit wet, so I have to be a bit careful. But I think this looks pretty neat as an industrial cabinet. So yeah, I'm quite happy with it. But that's it, guys. I'm gonna let it dry now overnight, and then we should have a nice dry and matte or dull surface, exactly the way I wanted to have it. So I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did, and I'll see you in my next video, which is probably going to be more about cars again. Thank you for viewing, and please by all means provide comments.